The cruelest jokes are usually told by the people who know exactly where to aim. It was December 31st, New Year's Eve, a night where most families toast to the future. But in the Vance household, the future had always been a throne reserved for my brother, Cole, and I was just the footstool. 35 and still coming home to Mommy and Daddy for New Year's, Cole's voice sliced through the clatter of dinner. He leaned back, his $2,000 suit jacket strained by an ego that had grown much faster than his bank account. Must be rough, Evie. Spending another year in that lonely office, coming back to an empty apartment. Maybe you should have focused less on law review and more on, I don't know, being likable? The table erupted. My mother gave that soft, apologetic titter, the sound of a woman who had spent 30 years excusing a bully. My father didn't even stop cutting his steak. They expected me to do what I'd always done. To be the reliable Evelyn, the one who swallows the insult, pays the bill, and remains invisible. But that night, the air in the room changed. I could feel the weight of the wedding ring hidden in the safe in my Boston penthouse. I felt the 5 years of silence finally reaching their boiling point. I set my glass down. The sound was like a gunshot. "Don't worry about my life, Cole," I said, my voice dropping to a frequency that made the crystal chandelier vibrate. "I've been married for 5 years. Before I show you the moment his face turned from smugness to ash, you need to understand the architecture of this lie. Because in this family, the truth wasn't a gift. It was a weapon I had to sharpen for a decade. In the Vance family, there was a ledger for success. On one side, there was Cole. He was the golden child. He didn't need to be smart. He just needed to be loud. He was the son who shook hands with the governor, the boy who won the state championship, the one whose every mediocre achievement was celebrated with champagne. Then there was me. I was the daughter who got perfect grades because I didn't want to give them a reason to look at me. I was the one who handled the logistics, the taxes, the boring stuff. When I got into Harvard Law, my father said, "Good, you'll be able to look over Cole's business contracts one day." Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "You've worked so hard." Just, "Be a tool for your brother." By 30, I was a senior associate at one of the white shoe firms in Boston. My life was measured in 6-minute increments and billion-dollar valuations. I moved in circles where Cole wouldn't even be allowed to park the cars. I remember one specific night. I had just closed a deal that saved a manufacturing town in Ohio from liquidation. 3,000 jobs saved. My bonus alone was more than Cole's annual consulting income. I called home, buzzing with the adrenaline of the win. "Mom, I just closed the Miller-Vance acquisition. It was—" "That's nice, honey," she interrupted. "But have you heard? Cole just got a new Tesla. He's taking the whole family to the club this weekend. It's such a shame you're so busy. A woman shouldn't work so hard that she forgets how to have a life." I hung up the phone and looked out at the Boston skyline. It was the first time I realized that they didn't just ignore my success. They resented it. Because if I was successful, then the story of Cole the success and Evelyn the failure wouldn't work anymore. I decided then I would give them exactly what they wanted. I would give them silence. I met Graham Foster in a boardroom that felt like a battlefield. He was the CEO of Aegis Cyber, the most aggressive tech startup on the East Coast. I was there to represent the firm trying to buy him out. Most CEOs in his position are peacocks. They talk about disruption and synergy. Graham walked in, sat down, and looked at me. Not at my legs, not at my assistant, at me. "Paragraph 4, Section C," he said, skipping the pleasantries. "The indemnity clause is a trap. You know it, I know it. Tell your client if they want my company, they have to trust my code." I leaned forward, a slow smile spreading across my face. "Your code is brilliant, Mr. Foster, but your debt-to-equity ratio in the third quarter suggests you're not in a position to dictate terms. If you want the capital to scale, you'll sign the clause." We went back and forth for 6 hours. It was the most exhilarating conversation of my life. At 8 p.m., the rest of the teams left for dinner. Graham stayed. "You're wasted at that firm, Evelyn," he said, leaning back. "You're fighting for people who don't understand the depth of your strategy." You don't know anything about my life, Graham, I replied. I know you've been the smartest person in every room you've ever entered, he said softly, and I know how lonely that is. That was the moment. Graham didn't want a wife to show off at the country club. He wanted a partner to conquer the world with. We were married 18 months later. Keeping my marriage a secret wasn't a game, it was a necessity. Graham's net worth was public knowledge. His face was on the cover of Forbes. If my family knew I was the woman behind the man who was reshaping the tech industry, they would have swarmed. Cole would have asked for seed money for his failing ventures. My father would have tried to use Graham's influence to fix his own declining investments. My mother would have turned our wedding into a PR stunt for the Vance name. So we made a pact. In Boston, I was Evelyn Vance Foster, power player, wife of a titan. In North Carolina, I was poor Evie, the lonely lawyer. I remember a Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago. Graham had come with me as my friend from work. Cole spent the entire night bragging about a $50,000 real estate deal he'd supposedly closed. He talked down to Graham the whole time. So, Graham, what do you do? IT support? Coding? Cole laughed, nudging my father. You know, that Evelyn always did have a thing for the nerds. Probably because they're the only ones who aren't intimidated by her lawyer voice. Graham looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. Should I tell him? I shook my head almost imperceptibly. Not yet. Let him dig the hole. Later that night in the guest room, Graham held me. Evelyn, you don't have to do this. You don't have to let them treat you like a second-class citizen. I'm not letting them do anything, Graham, I whispered. I'm watching them reveal who they really are. When the time comes, I want there to be no doubt. What I didn't tell my family, and what Cole didn't know, was that while he was mocking me, he was inadvertently stepping into my husband's world. Cole had started a new venture, Vance Logistics. He was trying to secure a massive government contract for supply chain security. He had leveraged everything: his house, Brooks' inheritance, even a secret loan from our father's retirement fund. He needed a cybersecurity partner to pass the audit. He approached Aegis Cyber. He didn't know it was Graham's company. He only knew it was the best. Graham came to me with the file. Your brother just sent over a proposal. Evelyn, it's a disaster. His security protocols are 5 years out of date. He's trying to cut corners to save money. I looked at the documents. It was classic Cole. All flash, no substance. What happens if you reject him? I asked. He loses the government contract. He probably goes under, Graham said. But what if I help him? For your sake. I thought about all the New Years, all the Thanksgivings, all the times I was told I didn't matter. Don't help him because of me, I said. Audit him exactly like you would any other vendor. If he's not good enough, he fails. That's the law of the market. Graham nodded. Cole was rejected 48 hours later. He didn't know it was us. He just knew his big break had evaporated. Which brings us back to that New Year's Eve. Cole was desperate. He had just lost his funding. He was looking for someone to blame, someone to make him feel big again. And there I was, sitting quietly. 35 and still not married. Must be rough spending New Year's alone, huh? An old maid. I didn't blink. I didn't cry. I felt a strange, cold peace. I've been married for 5 years, I said. Cole's laugh was brittle. Yeah, right. To who? Your briefcase? Your cat? I stood up. I walked over to the smart TV in the lounge and tapped my phone. Actually, to someone you know quite well, Cole. The silence was physical. It felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. My father stood up, his face ashen. That's Graham Foster. Evelyn, why is he holding your hand like that? Because he's my husband, Dad. And because he's the man who just rejected your son's pathetic business proposal last week. Cole's face went from pale to a deep, bruised purple. You knew? You let him kill my deal? No, Cole, I said, stepping closer to him. You killed your own deal with your incompetence. Graham just refused to lie for you. Something this family has been doing for far too long. I turned to my parents. You wanted me to be understandable. You wanted me to be a housewife or a failure so you didn't have to admit that the invisible daughter was the only one who actually built something of value. Well, here is my life. It's huge, it's successful, and none of you are invited to it. The fallout was swifter than I expected. Once the golden child myth was shattered, the reality of Cole's life became impossible to ignore. My father, finally looking at the records I had quietly flagged for him, discovered that Cole had been stealing from the family accounts for years. There was no consulting business. It was just a series of lies funded by my father's hard-earned money. Brooke left him 2 months later. "I thought I married the hero," she told me over coffee in Boston. "I didn't realize the hero was the woman sitting silently at the end of the table all those years." My parents tried to call. They sent flowers. They tried to bridge the gap. But how do you bridge a gap made of 30 years of indifference? Graham and I are expecting our first child now. My parents won't be in the delivery room. Cole won't be the cool uncle. I didn't win by destroying them. I won by refusing to let them define me. I am Evelyn Vance Foster, and I am no longer invisible. Sometimes the world wants you to stay small so others can feel big. They'll call you intense. They'll call you boring. They'll make you the punchline of their jokes. Let them. While they're laughing, keep building. Keep growing in the dark. Because the truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It just needs to be true. What would you have done in Evelyn's shoes? Would you have stayed for dinner or walked out the moment the photos appeared? Let's talk about it in the comments below.